All right, and we're back. It is COMP305, and it's the winter 2016 semester, week 10, part 1 of our broadcast. We're working off a project in Unity that we've been working off of. It's called COMP305 Winter 2016 3D Game Demo. That's the same one we're going to be working on today. Last day we talked about making a gun, right? Again, this is beyond what you normally do. So we talk about what we're going to be doing today and the next day, today and tomorrow, actually. Today we're going to be talking about finishing off the gun thing, right? I'm also going to be talking about some scoring. I want to get scoring done for you guys this week. Get all that done. I mean, you should know how to, set up a score anyway, but we'll talk about that. And I also want to talk about your final project, which I'm going to kind of give to you tomorrow, right? So that's going to be finalized. Again, I'm going to probably allow up to 3 people to work on it together. Again, only because it's a big one for you guys. For people who are doing my final projects in different courses, right? Like I said, if you're doing like COMP305 and COMP392 advanced graphics, and they're both 3D projects, you can. I would recommend use this. Maybe you want to share assets with between projects. That might be something you want to do. I'm going to break it out, the project, over a period of 4 weeks. So each week you're going to have to give something, and the last week of that everything is due is going to be on the Wednesday on week 14. All right. So again, we're not going to have a final exam for this course. There's no final exam, but we will do presentations and stuff like that are all due week 14. Typically week 12 and 13, those 2 weeks, I don't do classes. Like we don't do, I don't teach new material. But this year, we're going to change things up a little bit. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be reviewing your work, right? You and your partners and everything else during those weeks. So week 11, which is next week, will be probably the final thing we're going to do for this semester is, for new material, because I can't teach you too much more. Otherwise, what's going to happen is it's just going to be too much, right, for you guys to take care of. And you have to start working on your stuff. So I want to give you some time in class where I work with you guys, and then I want to review your work. So what I might do with you guys is sit down individually and mark everything, like right with you, right? So sit down and say, okay, here's all your work. Let's mark it. Here's your mark. And one at a time. And that's over a series of a few weeks, right? We can sit down together and get it all done. I can give you some feedback on your current project and all that kind of stuff, and give you some class in time to work with your partner. These are critical weeks over the next 3 weeks to get things done. And like I said, by tomorrow, I'll have all the details for your final project. And then by the end, you'll have good feedback for your work. You'll also have a good direction on what you're going to be doing, right? So I want to be seeing how you're progressing. So I want to see your progress. So please don't come to class and say it's not ready. Okay? I don't want to hear that. I'm sorry, professor. There's nothing I can show you. It's not ready. If you keep saying that to me, that's a bad indicator. That means to me that you're not working on your stuff, or I don't know what you're doing with it. So I want to see your work every week. So next week, starting next week, there's not going to be final tests or projects or those kind of things. But I will be expecting to see progress on your work and your projects, right? So please be prepared in class when I come in. All right, so again, today and the next day, it's all scoring and getting this final game going. And, maybe a couple more assets to just trying to finish the level and moving from one level to the other, kind of talking about how to move from one level to the other. Those things are important to do, right? And maybe how do I make a UI almost like a menu screen? I have to talk about that over this week and maybe next week. How do I make a menu scene that I can go from one place to the other place, right? So to create almost like a menu of more than one level that I can get to, because that's what you need for your final project. So that's what, if I do teach anything over the course of the next 3 weeks, it'll be just to help you on your final project. That's it. Nothing really new, just kind of solving problems. That's what we're going to be talking about. Okay. Okay, let's talk about this bullet stuff that we're doing. So where last we left off, we have our little project here, and if you notice, I can run around, right? In my little scene, right? And I kind of made a larger maze, and I can fire my gun, right? But it doesn't really do anything right now. It just kind of makes a little scene, right? So what I want to try and do today is make it so that wherever I'm aiming at, right, I'm going to make this little bullet fleck appear, right? This little impact, right? and it's going to make a little bullet sound. Okay, so let's try this out. So let's get rid of this. And in order for us to prepare for this, we have our mega tile that I kind of made last time, right? All these mega tiles are untagged, right? Let's leave them untagged for now. But I want to kind of go right into the floor, rooftop, and walls. Floor, rooftop, and walls, right? These are the things I want to kind of put in. And I want to start tagging. Let's make some custom tags for these things. So I'm going to add some custom tags. And notice there's no extra custom tags because this is the way we're going to know what to hit, right? So let's say if I hit walls, I want to know what I'm hitting, right? So there's walls, and let's say this is rooftop, and let's add another one in for floor, right? So I got floor, rooftop, and walls. Remember, I can't, now that I've made my tags, when I make tags, all they are is I'm tagging the game objects, right? Just almost to create a friendly name for them, right? So if I go to floor, and then if I go tag, and I want to go to floor, I want to apply this back to all the prefab. So all the floors in my scene now are going to have a tag of floor. Let's do that. Same thing with rooftop. I want to tag my rooftop as rooftop. Notice how it glows blue like this, right? And it's a change. I got to apply this back to the prefab. And same thing with walls. So all my walls, right, will have tags so that I can see them what they are. Now, in order for you to check this, if I go to another maze tile, so let's say I go to this maze tile and click walls, it says untagged. Notice how that says that. Like even though I've kind of pulled these in and everything else, and I've made that part of the floor and roof here, notice here, there's nothing there, right? So it says, even though it says walls, rooftop, and floor here as a name, right? They're still untagged. How come? Well, the mega tile has to be applied, right? So so wherever I put the mega tile in, remember I have 3 maze tiles, right? 3 of these maze tiles. So first of all, let's find where I tagged everything. So this is untagged. This is untagged. Let's go to the 3rd maze tile. This is untagged. This is oh, there it is. Floor, rooftop, and wall. See this maze tile here? So this first maze tile, I got to apply. That's the first one I got to do, right? Now, if that maze tile is done, let's take a look at this one. Right? Floor untagged. How come? Even though this maze tile is tagged back and it's got a floor, and inside the tags there's floor, rooftop, and walls, still this one here seems to be different, and so does this one. Even if I go to this one and go floor, rooftop, and walls, they're still untagged. How come? Well, these are prefabs that I'm pulling in, right? Remember, I made prefabs. Here's my prefabs. Here's my mega tile, right? My mega tile has maze tiles inside of them, and my maze tiles have these inside of those, right? So take a look how my maze tile, even though I sent it back to the prefab, floor is untagged. Let's tag this up for floor. This is actual prefab itself, right? So rooftop, it's got to be rooftop. This is important to understand the difference between tagging and how you do things back, right? And walls. All right, so that's my maze tile, right? Maze tile, the maze tile itself, the prefab for the maze tile is not changed. Okay, if that's true, then if I look at these maze tiles, are they changed? So let's take a look. Let's go look at the second. Let's look at another mega tile. So I got a maze tile in here, floor untagged. How come? I'm just saying. I'm putting it out there for you guys, right? It begs us to understand how this whole process works for tiles. Let's clean up our scene here because we need to, I'll let you right now know, we need to be able to have an understanding of what we're hitting, right? In order for us to get some results back, some feedback. If we don't have an understanding of that, it might be difficult to troubleshoot, right? So what I want to do is I want to get rid of all these for now, and we'll put them back. Just bear with me, okay? We'll make them again. So we kind of did it in haste last time, so I wanted to show you this. So they're all gone, right? I also have my player prefab. My player prefab, you know, I haven't really, I mean, I've added stuff to it. And if you notice in my prefabs, do I have a player prefab here? No, right? So what I want to do is I want to take this player itself, the player that I made, and drag and drop it into my own prefabs. And why? Because once I have my player in here, right? This is the good thing about this. I'm able to use my player itself and drag them into new scenes. If I want to create a new scene, then I got the gun, the player, all that stuff is part of my player now, right? As opposed to redoing all that again, right? It's a pain in the ass. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to do with my player. I want to save this information. And notice also when I saved, it has my player, and underneath that I have my player camera and my gun camera and my AK rifle and my flashpoint. All this is nice, but look at what my player has. It doesn't show everything in here. Okay, just to note that, you know, I'm doing a prefab of a prefab, and there's layered, like nested prefabs. It's not showing up here in my prefabs, just FYI, right? How it looks. All right, let's make our maze tiles and mega tiles again, right? So first of all, my maze tile is a prefab. And my maze tile itself doesn't have its own tag. I could tag it, right, as an example, because this is the group of everything else that has in it. But remember that the maze tile itself is a tile of a bunch of other things, right? So I'm not going to tag the maze tile. Maze tile is like a group. It's like an empty object that I'm grouping everything together. So let's leave that alone. Mega tile is a set of maze tiles. Let's get rid of that for a second. We'll make that mega tile again. Okay, good. Let's go back to maze tile. So I'm going to add my maze tile in, but first I'm going to create an object called mega tile. Now notice my maze tile, they have all these are all set up, right? Another thing is my barrel. My barrel is called barrel, but I want it to be called barrel. And notice that my tag is barrels. That's my tag for the barrel. It's called barrels, right? It should be up there too. If you don't have a tag called barrels, you should make a tag. Okay, so barrel, and here's this thing. Notice how even though I changed the name to barrel, this barrel itself has an explosion location within it, right? There it is. So I'm going to clear the tag. I'm going to click this as untagged, right? And I'm going to add a new tag and see, do I see barrels in here? I do. I see barrels, right, as a tag. I'm going to get rid of that and just make it barrel. Each barrel it hits, you know, I want to kind of make that as a barrel. So you should have 4 tags: walls, rooftop, floor, and barrel. Those are the 4 tags you should have right now. If you don't have them, change them. Just make them like mine. Okay, and I'm doing this again. It's all prep because I know what I'm going to be doing with my player firing and all that stuff. So here's my barrel. I want to tag this as a barrel. So every time I pull a barrel in, it's going to have a tag of barrel. Okay. Let's start pulling in my maze. So I'm going to put one maze tile at a time. So here's my maze tile. I'll pull it in. And remember, I want to make my maze tiles the mega maze that we did last time, right? So I'm just going to pull it in. This is the smallest unit of measure, right? So it's like, again, from a position perspective, this is an object we brought in with Blender. And let's make a bunch of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then group them under a big mega tile, right? Like we did before. So I'm going to Shift D, or Alt D for you guys to duplicate. Or if it might be Control D. And once I've duplicated it now, what I want to do is I want to pull it out so you can see it, just like I did this before. If people ask me about this, they email me saying, I don't know how you make your tiles. I understand, I see it, but I don't know how to do it. Okay, well, don't worry about that. Here's my first tile, right? And notice that my positioning is 16, but it's exact same. This is kind of boring. So we're just going to rotate this, let's say -90, just to make it, you know, kind of similar, right, but different. So a little bit different there. And what we're going to do just to save time is grab these 2 tiles. See, I'm grabbing both tiles, and then I'm Control D'ing these ones, right? So that means I'm actually pulling out 2 tiles that are the exact same. And then from a transform position, notice that my Z position is 16. Let's just put that in there. So now this is cool, but I want to rotate this. And notice how only one of them has this transform in there, right? It's like it doesn't share the transform between the 2 of them because they're 2 separate objects. It kind of takes one of the objects to rotate. So this is cool, but it's exactly the same. Let's rotate this tile so it's on the outside, right? So we're just going to get this. So we'll say this is 90, right? And again, we're trying to make it so that the tiles are somewhat different when you look at them. Like these are kind of opposing tiles. Let's make this one kind of similar to this one, but on the other side. So I'm clicking on this tile, clicking on this tile here. There it is, this tile. And what I want to do is I want to rotate this whole thing until it's 180. Just to make it slightly different. And if that's, or maybe it should be minus, that's maybe 0. There we go. So there's the the kind of the mega tile that we've made, right? So this is our one mega tile. We don't have a mega tile prefab. We're going to make one, so create an empty, just as a review. We're going to call this mega tile. There's my mega tile. And I want to take these mage tiles and group them underneath the mega tile. So kind of do one of those. There we go. Okay, now that I have my mega tile, I want to take this mega tile and pull it back into the prefabs. Right, so there we go, mega tile. All right. So again, if I was to remove this and drag it back in there, then theoretically, if we've done everything correct, this is where I check with you guys, right? I pull it in, and now let me go into the details, right into the floor. Is it tagged as a floor? Yes. How about this one? Is it tagged as a floor? Yes. How about this one? A rooftop, walls, everything is tagged, right? This is the way it should be. And I've done this, I've recreated it because when you make your prefabs, you got to be careful how you do it, right? Okay, so that's the first one. So it's one mega tile. Let's leave it as one mega tile for now. I can make more, right? But for now, let's keep it short, and so we can see what we've got, and then we'll add more later. And there's a reason for this too. Okay, I want to add a barrel in here, right? Because I need something to shoot at, right? So I've got my mega tile to shoot at, and I want to add a barrel. And let's just add that to the scene. So I'm just going to put that barrel in there. There it is. Notice how it appears. And if I play the scene right now, right, I've got my barrel. It's right there. I can shoot at it. Looks like I'm shooting at it, but really I'm not shooting at anything right now. I need to add a script for me to do this, right? Let's start adding our script. Now, right now, if you look at our player object, right, our player object has this player controller script that we made. Let's double click on this player controller script and bring it up in our mono-develop, you know, or in your case, Visual Studio or whatever. Okay, we're going to start doing stuff. I've got a public transform, which is a flash point. Let's just review what this is. Our flash point is actually inside of our player. So if you look at our player, here's our flash point. That's what this is. So that basically shows us where the flash, the gun flash is happening. That's where it's going to materialize, right, or instantiate, right? So let's go in there. And if I was to zoom in here to see it, right, here's our flash point. And what we're getting is a muzzle flash that's coming from our prefab. So here's a muzzle flash, and I'm calling the muzzle flash in there. So if I look at the player object, I have a muzzle flash prefab that I'm calling in, right, to the player object. I've got my flash point, which is I instantiate my flash point, which is just an actual game object. That's a transform, and I've positioned it. Remember last time how I positioned it? If I kind of zoom in there, right? So let's say zoom into the player object. It's right at the front of the barrel. So this is my barrel, and at the front of the barrel, I've got my flash point, and that's why it's appearing the way it is. Well, I go to do something similar, right, for my my impact, and I've got a bullet impact that I want to use. Here's my bullet impact right now, right? Now I've done a couple of things with it that are silly, right? One of the things I did with my bullet impact is I've made a bullet noise, so it goes, you know, that concrete impact thing. And I think what I'm going to do for this one is, in my bullet impact, I'm going to remove my audio component for a second, all right? Because I don't want to confuse everything. So let's remove this component, my audio source. I can put it in later, right? It's got a self-destruct script kind of link to it, this object. So the object itself will go away before it plays the sound, right? Got to be careful about that. That's why I got to take this away. Now what I want to do is I want to bring my bullet impact into the scene, right? I want to instantiate my bullet impact, this thing here, when I hit something. So whenever I hit something, I got to instantiate it. All right, so I need a reference to this bullet impact object. And the bullet impact object that I need, right, from an impact perspective, what kind of thing is it? It's not a muzzle flash, right, like we did before. It's definitely a game object, but it's also a particle system, right? That's what it is. Now the particle system itself, if I bring it into being, let's bring the bullet impact in here, into the scene, right? Notice how as soon as we bring it into the scene, I'm just gonna, you know, kind of look at it for a second, move it up to here, and zoom into it so you can see it. And we'll swivel around so we can put it next to the wall, right? Just so that way we're clear on what's happening here. Because this is something where people get confused, right? And in previous times, you know, I don't want to go into the wall too much. But what I want to do here is I want to show you what the bullet impact looks like. So here's just looking at it from a different perspective, okay? So I get a bullet impact. A bullet impact, all it is a it's a particle system, right? And if I play it, right? If I instantiate, notice that it's just a particle system that I'm going to simulate. So this is what it looks like. See that? Let's simulate that again. So it's going to look like when I hit the wall that it's going to blow up like that. So every time I hit the wall, wherever I hit with my ray, because I'm going to raycast, right? From wherever I'm looking, wherever I hit with my ray, I want to get that bullet impact going, okay, when I hit a wall. Okay, that's the idea. So bullet impact, I need to make a reference to bullet impact. I don't want to play necessarily the bullet impact like I play my object. So if I go back to my script, before what I did was I brought in my, I have an input, right? And what I say is this, I say instantiate the muzzle flash, this muzzle flash idea, at the flash point position, and then make sure it's not rotated. That's what the muzzle flash is. And the muzzle flash itself is a game object. So I'm not bringing it in as a particle system. It plays on the way. As soon as I instantiate my muzzle flash, it plays. And then it stops playing when it's done. I want to do the same thing for the bullet impact. As soon as my bullet impact plays, it's going to play, and then it's going to be over. And I don't want to see it anymore. Right? But the only time it's going to play is when I actually have a hit. So I need a reference to my bullet impact. So let's make that here. So let's say public game object. We'll call this bullet impact. That's the first thing we're going to do, bullet impact. Save. We'll go back to here. If I look at my player object now, I should have an additional space in there for my bullet impact. There's muzzle flash, bullet impact. Let's bring my bullet impact. First of all, let's get rid of this bullet impact here on the stage. Get rid of it. And what I want to do is I want to bring in my bullet impact from my my prefabs. Notice again, I took away my audio source because I want to be able to control the audio of my bullet impact separately, right? We're going to add that in most likely to the player object, okay? I could self-contain it, but the problem is the bullet itself self-destructs, right? So if I don't play it on time, my audio source, it'll be gone before it's played. You gotta be careful about that. So does the flash, the actual muzzle flash. But I want to pull this in. So we'll go back to the player object. I'm going to pull in the bullet impact. There it is. Okay, cool. So here's something I want to do just to test it. I want to project the bullet impact, right, in front of me whenever I hit. So that's the first thing. I've got a reference to the bullet impact particle system. But I'm only doing it, all I'm doing with it is I'm saying, you know, let's play that impact when I'm ready to go. It's going to instantiate that impact every time I hit. It's going to instantiate that impact. That's all I'm doing. Okay? Wherever I hit, it's going to instantiate that impact. Just like I instantiate the gun, the flash. All right? Whenever I do a flash, whenever I hit the gun, instantiate that flash. I may or may not put the sound back in for now, but I need to test it this way. Okay, cool. So I've got a reference to it. That's one. Two, I want to be able to test to see that I'm as soon as I cast my ray, as an example, I'm casting my ray as soon as I hit the button. So as soon as I hit play, I'm going to raycast. Now, raycasting itself is a physics thing, right? It's a physics-related issue because it's physics-related. What I'm actually doing is I'm drawing a line from the middle of my camera. That's what I'm doing, which is my player. I'm drawing a line from the middle of my camera to the as far as I can go, and I can declare how far that ray is going to go, right? So let's go back into the script for a second, and notice that my update is here, and I use my input that get button down. That says, okay, if I click my button, I'm going to have my muzzle flash happen, right? That's what's happening here. I instantiate my muzzle flash. If I do the same thing, let me just show you that this works, right? If I instantiate not only my muzzle flash, but let's just for giggles, I'm going to instantiate my bullet impact. So bullet impact, I'll do it at the flash point as well. Flash point got position, right? And by turning identity, so we can see that we can instantiate my muzzle flash and my bullet impact at the same time. Okay, so that's all I've done is just made, instead of muzzle flash, every time I click the fire button, I'm also instantiating my bullet impact. All right, let's try this out and see what it looks like. And we're just, demonstrating. See that? So it looks like I'm hitting something, right? But I'm not really hitting anything, right? it's actually coming out of the front of my gun. And it's going to come out differently every single time, depending on how I angle it. I'm not really hitting anything right now. Look, I can even hit the sky. It'll do the same thing, right? Which is kind of weird. But the point is that that's how we instantiate. We instantiate an object. When we use the instantiate keyword, we're bringing into being a new bullet impact. And it briefly comes into our game world and then disappears, right? And it disappears because it has a built-in script to eliminate it. I'll show you that one more time. Watch what I want you to watch here, and I don't want to maximize on play this time around. Okay, I want you to watch my hierarchy. Okay, so here's my hierarchy. I'm playing, and here I am, right? And I press the button. Watch my hierarchy. See how the bullet impact was there, and so was my muzzle flash for a second? Take a look. Watch it again, right? If I click it a bunch of times, it's a bunch of them, but eventually they get cleaned up. They go away because they've got a built-in script, right, to remove my bullet impact once it's played. This is good. It's a good thing. So that means if I put back my sound bite, here's my sound bite. Let's go back to my sound bite for a second. So I'm going to go back to where I have my standard assets here. And if I look at my FPS effects, I have some sounds, right? And I have my fire. I also have my impacts, and I picked concrete impact. And again, I can put different ones. Right now, all I want to hear is this one, right? The same one over and over again. And that's the one I want to put on my bullet impact itself. So again, in order for me to do this properly, right, I need to bring in my prefab again one more time and put it back. I'll show you this, just to reiterate how this is all done. Here's my bullet impact. My bullet impact right now does not have it. I'm going to put it back like we had it before. So I'm going to go back to impacts. I'm going to take my concrete impact and add it to my bullet impact. All right, so every time I click it now, right, not only will I be able to see my bullet impact, but I'm also going to hear my sound. And it's going to play once, and it's going to be gone. But the only time the bullet impact is going to show is when I hit something. So therefore, let's see if it lasts long enough so I can hear my my stuff playing. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of my bullet impact. Or did I save it back to prefab? Let's make sure I did. So bullet impact. I may have not. I did not. So let's just do that again one more time. Sorry, I forgot to do that. So just going to do one of these. And click apply. All right. And now let's get rid of it and test it to make sure it's there. So if I go to my bullet impact, the prefab, here's my bullet impact. I have an audio clip. Okay. All right, let's check this out now and see what happens. So I'm going to play the game again. And I'm not maximizing on play. And again, as soon as I press the fire button, right, I get my bullet impact, and you hear the sound. I hear the sound too, right? So the sound and everything's playing, and it doesn't disappear. I'm not getting any errors. This is a good sound that we can use. We kind of combine the sound with the bullet impact for our simple example. Now, a lot of times what we want to do is want to separate it out to have more control, right? But for now, I think we're pretty good. So let's escape from that. All right, so we've tested our bullet impact. We know it's going to work, and everything else. Same thing with the explosion. The explosion will be there, and then it'll go away, right, as soon as we hit. Okay, let's get back to the coding. And by the way, I don't want to instantiate my bullet impact. I want to instantiate my bullet impact only when I hit. Okay. So I need to do a physics thing, and if I do a physics thing, what kind of update do I need? Fixed update. Fixed update. Right. So this is the end of update. So we'll say, I'm just going to kind of mark my curly braces because sometimes they go crazy. Eh? Too many curly braces. So end update. This is end start. So I know that this is the end of my start. This is the end of my end of my if statement, right? If my button down is working, right? So this is what this is doing, right? So I want to inside here, I want to create another update called fixed update. Remember, fixed update, what it does, right? It's really, we use it's more of a consistent update that we use, right? So when I press my button, when this is pressed, my input.get button down, I do it on update. That's nice. But what I really want to do is raycast. right? So I want to do this in one update, right? I don't want to do it in my one update does this, my other update does this. So I'm going to move all this stuff here, right, in here. Or I could have renamed this update to fixed update, right? So this is where this is happening. Let's just test it as is now. By the way, this is the end of fixed update. Fixed update. Okay. And let's test it to see if it works like this. If there's a difference, if I move it from here to here, what happens, right? So I think it's important for us to do that. So press play button, still works, right? Still instantiates, nice thing. And I don't have the other thing going on because I took it away. But overall, fixed update works very similar. It's just more consistent for us. So do I need an update in my function right now, in my player controller? And the answer is no. I probably can get rid of it. For now, let's leave it as is, just so we don't confuse anybody. All right, cool. So in this get button down, when I click the button down, I'm firing. Cool. But what I also want to do is this. I want to instantiate a new ray, right? So when I'm clicking the button down, and I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to say Raycast, right? So if I go Raycast Hit, that's an actual object of type, Raycast Hit. So what I'm listening for, I'm creating a new hit, right, for my ray. That's how it works. So Raycast Hit, I'm going to call this, my hit, right? And this, what this does is it stores information, just to understand what this is, right, from the ray. That's what it does. So I cast a ray, and my hit stores the information. It stores the position of the hit, what my ray happens in. Just to understand what ray casting is, think about an invisible line that gets drawn when I make a ray. And it gets drawn for a second, and then it's going away. It's going to disappear. The ray doesn't last forever. It's not like I have a ray that's constantly pointing. I'm not doing that. I'm making the ray appear, and then it's going to disappear. And whatever the ray intersects, think about if I have more than one object. I have 10 objects. My ray can pass through 5 of them all at the same time, right? What I want to do is the first object that the ray intersects with, I want to get the information from that object. I want to know the position. I want to know where it's been hit and so on. And that's where I'm going to instantiate my bullet impact, right? So whatever my ray hits, I'm going to put that bullet impact there to look like I'm hitting. I'm not really doing anything. I'm just ray casting, okay? Okay, so that's the first thing. So ray hit, I need that. And then what I got to do is I've got to check to see, I got to use my physics raycast in order for me to see what I've hit. So let's put that in play next. So I've instantiated an object to hold my information for my hit. And this is, by the way, happening every single time I press my button. Every single time I press the fire button, I make a new object called Raycast Hit. Okay, it's important to understand that. Okay, so I'm going to say if, here we go, physics. This is why I'm using the physics. So not physics 2D, but physics, right? Dot raycast, right? Physics.raycast. And if I open up the bracket, it tells me what I need. It says I need a ray, right? So I could make a new ray, but I could also put in the information that it needs. There's different, if you notice, there's different constructors here. If I scroll down, right, and if I look at all the different, if I look at all the different constructors, there's tons of them. It's not just one. The one I'm looking for is the one that has this transform position. So I'm going to say, well, I'm going to say this. So from this is where it's casting from. This dot transform, right? But wait a minute. Do I have a transform position for my object yet? I mean, I need that, right? I need to understand where I'm coming from, and I don't have that yet. And this is where I can put it in start. So let's make a private variable. I need a private variable. So private instance variables or member variables, whatever. Right, inside there we're going to make a private variable called, it's going to be of type transform, and where we're going to hold, it's going to be underscore transform. We've done this before, right? And inside my start method, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare what this is. I'm going to say this dot underscore transform, right, is equal to game object, which means this game object, right, game object, dot get component, transform, right? That's going to be a reference to the transform. Okay. Here's the other thing I want to do. Could I make it just a position? Because also transform is one thing, but position is a vector. Right? I could make it that too. There's many ways to handle this thing. I can limit it, but I want to use my transform. So here, now that I've got a reference to the transform, which is the game object's position, right? I could also use rigid body, by the way, if I want to. Either way, it's fine. If I had a rigid body, I could do that as well. But for now, it's physics.raycast, and I want to have from and to. So where am I casting from, right? So this dot underscore transform, right? And it's going to be dot position, so where I am. So I start off at where I am. And now, if you notice, it says, so here's my, it's again, there's, I'm still trying to figure out, you know, which of my things I'm going. So I'm going to, from array direction to array, so array origin, which is what this is the origin, to array direction. Which way am I casting the ray? And what I want to do is transform forward. So basically, there's a built-in position or direction for my camera. Wherever my player is looking, I want to look wherever the forward position of my player is. I'm going to cast my ray, right? That's what I'm doing with my camera, right? So let's try this again. So I'm going to say, and again, this is kind of key. So this dot underscore transform dot forward, right? So that's the next one. So I'm casting a ray from here to where it's going to go. That's the next piece. Now the next one I want to do, if you notice, so I'm going to add some more details here, and let's just going to kind of get rid of this so you can see this whole thing a little better, right? So physics raycast. I'm going to do this operation. This method is a raycast from the origin to the destination, right? This is where it's going, or this is the direction, if you will, right? The direction I'm casting my ray. And then what it's going to be is I need something, an object, to hold the information, right? I need a ray. And I've done it right here. This is the ray up here. My Raycast hit is the ray information that I need. So I want to put that in there. The challenge is if I pass in hit into the object, I'm not going to get anything back, right? So I need to use a reference variable, and this is, if you remember from C#, we can use out. Don't want to use kind of references, out and ref. And out and ref, what it does is it provides information that comes right back into that variable as a reference. So I want to pass it by reference, but I'm going to use a very special way of doing that called out. So I'm going to say out hit. So I'm getting the reference information from my hit variable, and out means this is what is going to contain the information from my array. So my array is going to output right to the hit variable. That's what's happening. And the reason why it's happening is because I'm using the out keyword, which allows me to pass this by reference as opposed to passing it by value. All right, so here it is. And then I need a maximum distance. So what's my maximum distance as an example that I'm casting my ray? For now, let's make it 50 units. So 50 units, right? So if I hit something with my ray, right? If I hit something with my ray, for now, what I want to do is I want to instantiate, just like we did before. Let's just pull this whole thing in here for a second. Let's pull this whole thing. And let's, instead of instantiating a bullet impact, let's instantiate something bigger so we can see it. Let's instantiate the muzzle flash. So I'm going to say this dot muzzle flash, right? And it's going to be, instead of where it's going to be the hit dot position, whatever the hit is, right? Itself, the hit itself carries forward a bit of information, right? But it's not hit position, it's actually hit point. Hit point. Wherever I hit, I want to make that muzzle flash appear. Just to say, right? It's gonna be weird looking, but it's gonna demonstrate where it's hitting. If I'm hitting anything, it's gonna muzzle flash. Whatever I hit, anything I hit. If I don't hit anything, no muzzle flash can appear. Okay? Yeah.
So, like you said before, like the Raycast can go through multiple objects.
The first object that it hits.
Oh, it only stops once it hits.
Again, there's different variations of it. I could make it pass through multiple objects as an example, but the first object that I hit, I want to get that information.
Okay.
This is a great thing too. If I can use raycasting as an example, as a pulse every round for an enemy, right? An enemy can raycast to see if I can see you. Do I see you? Do I see you? Do I see you? Or as I'm turning, oh, I see him. Now I'm in pursuit mode. And almost like an AI, right? I can kind of put in some heuristic, some logic to the enemy chasing you. Why is he chasing you? Because he saw you, right? Oh, how come the gun's firing at you? Because the gun, as it moved over, oh, it's raycasting as it's moving. And now that it's seeing you, it's going to fire at you, right? So it's the same thing here. Whatever the first thing it gets hit is what's going to be returned in the hit. And it's not going to be hit position, but actually hit point. Point is the property that has, it's a vector 3 object that gives us the position of where it's been hit. The first intersection, okay? Let's check this out and see if it works. It may not, right? So everything's good. And then what happened? How come, like, look, I had 2 muzzle flashes, but I don't see it. It's not closer. I hear it twice too, right? How about up here? Wait, I got like 3 of them, and it's like it's. If you notice, it's not appearing. Look where my muzzle flash is appearing there in the scene. See, the muzzle flash is actually appearing. Why can't I see my muzzle flash? Because it's inside the wall. That's why. How come it's working up here though? I'm firing up here, and then I'm still seeing a muzzle flash being fired up there, right? Well, because I'm saying I'm firing it regardless every single time, wherever the hit location is, somewhere in the sky, where the end of the, if I don't, the hit information happens like this too. If I don't hit anything, right, it takes the maximum position, the maximum extent, right? Yeah.
The pointer that you have, your muzzle flash is not actually it's going to be very
Why is that?
do we need to change our pointer?
Well, let's take a look. So if I fire straight in front of me, right? So I fire, right? I gotta be careful what it see. Here's what I see up here, and the up here in this part of the screen, right? And again, if I was to move the screen over so you can see, this is where my object is pointing at. This is, if I point over here at the wall, right? See how it appears? Where is it appearing? Right? Look where it's appearing. It's kind of appearing in my scene, but it's not appearing in front of me, right? This is good. I mean, this is appearing in the scene, right? And let's move around. So moving around the scene, right? I move over here. I'm pointing at the wall now. And see how the muzzle flash appears? It actually does appear over there. I can see it more clearly now, right? Now here's something else. Notice that I'm aiming higher. Why is that? So I'm asking you this question because I've put my script and my shooting information on the player. Where should I really be putting my player, the gun camera, right? On the actual camera, actually itself. The camera, the player camera is where it should be, not on the player. And the reason for this is because if I do this, it's the player position that I'm looking at, wherever the player's facing. The player could be lower in, it's not facing the right position, right? I'm just showing you this so that way we understand what's happening. Right? It's working, but it's not working as I like to work. Okay, so that means on my gun camera itself is where this new script that I need is going to play, right? And in fact, what I should do, if I play it on the gun camera, right? And if I go back to my player script just for a second, right? Notice that it says my player position, and I put my muzzle flash and all this kind of stuff, right? I got to really be careful how I do this, right? I'm not moving my player. I'm firing my weapon, right? So when I press my button, right, all this stuff here, even though it says player control, I shouldn't put it on my player. I should put it on my camera, not my gun camera, my camera, right? Let me explain this to you, all right? Because when I turn my head, what's really turning? The camera is turning, right? Not the player. here's my gun camera, right? My gun camera, it's following my player camera. I could put it on my gun camera too, right? And then I also have a canvas, right, which is showing the reticule in the middle of the screen. That's just an illusion. That's my player 4 position. So what I want to do, right, to make this work properly, is let's move my script. So here's my player object. Instead of putting my player object here, right, I'm going to move this script out of my player object and adjust my flash point. All this stuff is still there. I just got to readjust it to see this what it is. I'm going to kind of, remove this component for a second. All right, okay, cool. On the player camera now, right, this is my player camera. That's different. Wherever my player camera looks, it has a center position, right? It has a vector. It's also a vector object, right? And it's a totally different thing, right? Same thing with my gun camera. My gun camera is kind of looking wherever my gun looks, right? It's kind of a smaller view. And also it only has, I can only see, that's why it's critical not to put it on the gun camera. It only sees about 10 out, right? I don't want to do that. So the player camera might be the better position to put it in. Now I have my script. Here's my script here. And I'm going to drag and drop my player controller script. Maybe we have to rename this thing, right? But I'm going to put this thing, and this is really the shooting script, player shooting, right? So let's rename this thing. So I'm going to say, now remember, when I rename the script, be very careful when we rename, right? What do I really have to do when I rename the script, right? It's not just a matter of going like this and renaming this to player shooting script. That's not enough. So if I double click inside here, it says player controller. So I got to change this as well, right? So I got to rename this object as well as what I'm doing over there. So let's call this the player shooter. Player shooting is what I'm doing. I think I call it player shooting. Yeah, player shooting. Yeah. If I don't do this, the class, it'll be all messed up. So I got to make sure I do that. When I rename my script, I got to rename my object here as well. Okay, cool. So that's the first thing. Now my player shooting script, what I want to do is I want to attach it to the player camera. So I'm going to kind of drag and drop this over here. All right. Now notice that I still need a flash point, a muzzle flash, and bullet impact. Let's put that in there for now. So I'm going to go back to what I have. So my flash point. So here's my flash point. That's still the same. My muzzle flash is a prefab. I'm going to pull my prefabs up. So here's my muzzle flash. And my muzzle flash. And then I also have an impact. My bullet impact is going to go here. So I've got all those references now, just like I did before. I've just moved my script from my player to my player camera. Let's play this and see if there's a difference. Okay, so fire. See the difference? If I move like this over here, right? And I want to fire at the wall, right? See how it fires exactly where I want it now? Right? So wherever I aim, even the barrel, is where I want it, right? See that? And that's more accurate than if it was my player. My player is not the object I should attach this shooting script to. It's got to be my camera. Because my camera is the eyes of my player. It's an illusion, ladies and gentlemen. It's not, it doesn't have to be what you think it's going to be, right? Remember, games are all illusions. They're all tricks. And this is one of the tricks we use. Okay, cool. So now that we've got that idea we know this idea, let's change this. Instead of muzzle flash, we'll play the bullet impact. So it sounds like we're actually hitting something. So we'll say this dot bullet impact is the one we're going to use. Let's try this and make sure that it's accurate. And it's, again, the range is 50 units. Yeah. Well, we can take that. I'll do that in a second. First, let's just do any hit, right? One thing at a time. We always, you know what? Whenever you do a new feature, always go in small steps. Once you go in too many steps, doesn't matter whether you do this, any other kind of programming you do. If I go and do a lot of stuff at once, bad. Why? Because I don't know what the hell I messed up, right? This way, I know what I messed up if it doesn't work. One small step at a time, and you're not going to go wrong. If you do too many things at once, it doesn't matter how many times you do a GitHub update or whatever, you're still not going to know what's happening, all right? So let's try this first, and then we'll go do what you said. All right. So here's our first bullet impact, and let's just press it. All right, so now if you notice, if I hit it, right, I hear that sound. I can't see it though, right? I see it's coming, right? But in the game, I have to be fairly close to it. See how it looks? It's there, right? It's just coming out wherever I see it, even on the floor, right? Wherever I hit, right? See? It's pretty good. So I like that idea, right? So that's working pretty good. Now I'm making them and they're disappearing. And you might say, well, you know, that's cool and all, but you know, is that all we need? Well, what I want to do is I want to do this. I want to do the bullet impact when it hits something. Hey, one thing we should probably do is check it and maximize on play, right? Because this is then I'll upload to GitHub. Right, so I'll press play. We're running, and then so you'll see the update. But yeah, we don't see it all the time. Well, no hit, hit, no hit, hit. How about here? Still works, right? Top of the barrel is being hit. That's good. My only problem with it is, and this is just me, right, that I don't want to make the bullet impact when I hit the barrel. I want to explode the barrel, which means I need an explosion reference here as well, which is just another game object. Let's do this. So we go back to the script here. We've got our flashpoint, a muzzle flash, a bullet impact. Let's add explosion. So public game object, explosion, right? That's what our explosion is, right? And what I'm going to do is I need to save the script, go back here, and we should see an explosion that comes up in a second here. Right, so I'm going to click away. There it is, explosion. Now I have an explosion that I've already put into my game, my game object right here. So I'm going to pull this over on my prefab and pull it into this. So there's my explosion. Okay, cool. Now this is the effect I want. When I hit my barrel, then I want to make an explosion, but I don't want to make a bullet impact, right? So why would I make a bullet impact? Bullet impact's only for the walls right now on the floor, maybe, right? We'll see. Okay. Let's see if I can do this thing. And by the way, my bullet impact I can change to impact floor, impact wall, impact whatever, depending on what I'm hitting, right? So an example is maybe if there's something that's wooden, like a crate or something like that, it's going to make a different bullet impact sound, and it's going to be a totally different bullet impact effect than I would have when as opposed to the regular one that I'm using, which is like almost like a concrete impact, like hitting bullet. My bullet impact actually is misnamed. It should be called bullet impact walls or concrete. That's a different kind of effect. Maybe I'm going to have another one that's bullet impact on wood, right? That kind of thing, or on water. It should you know, kind of, you know, sound that hitting the water, right? Okay, cool. So this is the first thing I need to do. All right, so how do I differentiate between the walls and the barrel? We've kind of done that, right, with the tag. We've got the tag name. So how do we detect to see if it's being hit? So first of all, before we do anything crazy, right, inside my Raycast, inside here, what I want to do is I want to detect what my hit is hitting, right? And what I can do for this is I can do something like this. I want to kind of debug.log, and I want to say hit, right? And again, I want to talk about the game object that it hits, right? So, but notice that I can't get to it. I can go hit dot transform, right? Dot game object dot tag. I can look at those things. That's how if you notice, this is the tag that I want to look at. I want to print out the tag, right, of the object that I'm hitting. Let's see if this works. And the reason why I'm doing it in so small steps is because I want to troubleshoot before I have a problem, right? Let's try this out. So I'm going to press play, and depending on what I'm hitting now, if I hit the wall, walls. If I hit the barrel, barrel. See how this is barrel? This is good. Now I have a way of differentiating between my barrel and my walls. How about the ground? What? It says player. How come it said player? Too close. This is a good thing. If I have an explosion Like if it explodes next to me, as an example, I can create a radius that if I'm in the explosion radius, and by the way, I haven't done this yet with this thing here, but explosions can be funny things, eh? You can make the explosion so that it pushes you back with force and all kinds of other stuff. Right now, there's no force. It's just cinematic. That's all I'm hoping for today. Let's make a cinematic explosion, and let's add some score, all right? Later on, we'll make it so that the explosion actually blows things up, like blows things away from it. So it's not just cinematic. It's also, there's going to be a force applied to it, right? How do I do that? Well, let's run. So we're running, and I want to hit the wall, right? And I get walls. How about over here if I hit the ground over there? Am I going to get ground? Floor, right? That's cool. I got the floor. I go up to the ceiling, right? And I hit the top of this area, rooftop. Right, so I can see if it's I can make different sounds depending on what I'm looking at, and depending on where I hit. Notice that it's nice. When I hit the roof, I can see the effect, right? As I come closer, though, the bullet impact doesn't seem to look as nice, right? But this is good. Here's something else I can do. I can also leave an object every time I hit the wall, so it looks like I've put a bullet in the wall, right? It's just a special effect again, right? It's almost like I'm changing the color of the wall or adding an object to the wall that sticks to the wall. It's always going to be there until the game is over. Now that could be a lot of objects, just FYI, right? So because if I hit enough times, you can see the whole wall full of bullet holes, right? So it's kind of cool, but remember, it takes more effort for the machine. Okay, cool. So I know that I'm hitting what I want to hit. I've been able to use my debug.log, right? My debug.log here to see what I'm hitting. So therefore, I need to do this. I'm going to say if hit.transform.gameObject.compareTag is barrel. Instead of doing this, instantiate an explosion. All right, that's what I'm doing. Let's try this out. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to say if, right? And I'm not going to instantiate, otherwise, if I hit something, then I'm going to instantiate this, right? So here's how we're going to do it. So hit transform .gameObject.compareTag, and it's going to be barrel, right? If that's true, then I want to instantiate on an explosion. This is how silly it is, right? Instantiate, right? An explosion, this dot explosion at the hit point, wherever I hit, right? The barrel itself. So wherever I hit, by the way, the barrel itself has its own hit location, if I can use that as well if I want, right? So it's not just the hit point, but also the middle of the barrel if I want to, right? Okay, and then quaternion identity means don't rotate it. However I hit, that's where the explosion is going to come out of, right? Okay, this is cool, but I'm going to do both this way. So I want to kind of put an else statement in there, right? I can also put an if. I can say if hit that transform GameObject.compareTag something else, right? Like walls, only the walls, then do the thing, but not on the ground, right? I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say else. So anything else that gets hit, if it gets hit for now, we're going to make it so that it makes the regular bullet impact, right, for now. But you could specify different things that you're hitting, have different effects, right? Let's try this out, right? And then, no, you're going to notice there's going to be an issue here. Let's see what the issue is. So play. Let's hit the barrel. Nice effect, right? But there's a problem. Let's hit the barrel over here. How about over here? What's the problem? It's kind of buggy, right? First of all, the barrel should die, right? Because there's no way the barrel should, should survive the explosion, right? Number one. The other thing is that the barrel, luckily, this has been built into an explosion location. There's actually an explosion location that's built into the barrel, right? And this explosion location is what I really want. I want to be able to tag into there, right? So the barrel explosion location is going to be, for every barrel, it's going to have an explosion location, right? I like it, right? I like this explosion location idea, right? But I need to tag it somehow in order for me to use it, right? Because the explosion location is a child of the barrel object, right? So I've got to kind of go down into this other object and notice that it's just a, it's untagged. It's called explosion location. That's what's happening, right? Here's the other thing I can do. I can tie in my explosions. Instead of me making the explosion instantiate, I can say this. If the barrel gets hit, whatever gets hit, I can, once the barrel is hit by an object, the barrel can detect that there's an object that's been hitting, that's hit it, or that's connected to it. And then from there, I can make the barrel explode on its own, right? Neat, but there's a little bit more script involved. Okay, well, look at this. The barrel's location. The barrel location is, whatever it is with a rotation, 0, 4, whatever, and with a scale. This is one of the problems that we have. So the position is, 4 units up where it is right now in the game, and then minus, Z position. But relative to the barrel, the explosion is a weird number, 9.8 units, right? And a minus Z position that's inside the barrel itself. That's what it is, right? So again, how do I access this explosion location of the barrel? We don't have that information. And we can't just use the barrel. I mean, I can, the barrel is there, but I can't kind of connect to it because every barrel is going to have a different position. So it's going to be tough to do that. It's going to be relative. This explosion location is going to be relative to all the barrels. But let's take a look at what we have. We have the game object, the transform, right, of the hit. And we have the game object that's tied into it. I have access to the whole game object, right? And the game object has actually a location. That's what the point is. The location of the game object itself, right? So instead of me putting hit point, I can say my hit transform game object, right? And again, I can continue on doing compare tag transform, right? Dot position, right? I could do that as well. Let's try this. So instead of this big hit point here like this, let's try making it so that the barrel explodes in a different place, right? So I'll say something like this. So it won't be exactly the hit location, but it'll be something in the middle of the barrel. How do I do that? So hit.transform, .game object, .get component, transform, .position. Right, because that's just the position of the barrel. That's what this is, barrel's position. Okay, let's see if that works any differently, and if it's worth doing. So, blah, blah. Damn. Kind of behind it, right? All the time. What about if I took from a quaternion perspective, right? Quaternion identity is one of the things we can use for rotation. Remember it's almost like the explosion itself, right? Where it's being created. I'm creating an explosion, right? And the quaternion identity is the rotation of the explosion, right? So it means wherever I'm firing my hit, the explosion is going to come from that point outwards, right? Is there another object, another way I can do the hit? So instead of quaternion identity, so let's get rid of this. Let's go back to hit point. It's exactly the same, by the way, right? Much easier to see this too, and much more. It makes more human sense, right? Hit point. But here, quaternion. If I say dot, and if I go dot angle, right? These are built-in things. Dot angle access. Dot identity, which is a property, right? What else do I have? Do I have anything else that's in here, right? Quaternion identity. And what about if it's like, if I put a negative value? So quaternion identity is one thing, but I make a negative quaternion identity. Let's see if I can do that. So identity, can I do that, right? It's just that a quaternion is a thing. Can I do negative quaternion identity? Let's see what that does for us. Playing, I want you to understand, whoa, compiler errors, what the hell? How come because you can't have a negative quaternion identity. So it's a nice idea, Tom, but no. Right? This is the angle that it's looking for. And if you notice, it says it's quaternions are used to represent rotations, right? What about if I just put in like 0? So I just don't put in any location at all. So 0f. So I don't have any kind of rotation whatsoever. Or, but remember, this is the rotation for everything else. So like a new vector 3 object, a new vector 3 object to represent, you know, the quaternion. So I kind of do 0, 0f dot 0f dot 0f. So kind of like an explosion, you know, like it was meant to be made, right? So instead of like whatever the explosion is, it's what the explosion is going to be, kind of thing. All right, let's check this out and see if this works. So, oh man, what the hell? How come it's giving me this error? Well, because it says, how about I make it a new quaternion instead of a new vector? So instead of a vector, I make it a new quaternion. There it is. And I use this. It looks the same, right? So a new quaternion is 0, 0, 0. See if that works. Oh man, what the hell? How come it didn't work? Well, it says Unity, you know, Unity Engine quaternion is what it's looking for, right? And it has some invalid arguments, right? It says all compiler is assets, scripts, player shooting. Unity Engine quaternion does not contain, look what it says, does not contain a, if I can see this a little bigger, a constructor that takes an argument, right? So let's just see what it looks like. If I do quaternion, and just to understand this, if I press open, a new quaternion, right? I don't know what that's going to be. So instead of quaternion identity, I want to make a new quaternion, right? Well, that doesn't mean anything, and that's going to cause an error too. Watch. So play. That's cool. And then here, no difference. And keep doing this over and over again. Pretty crazy, right? The idea here is that even though I've done that, it doesn't really do anything to my situation, right? In fact, when I use quaternion identity, it's what it does. Let's take a look at the thing. If I was going to look at Unity 3D quaternion, right? Because the scripting, what is it? It's used to represent rotations. They're compact, don't suffer from gibble lock, and can easily be interpolated, right? This is good, right? And if I want to look at identity rotation is a read-only value, right? And I also can look at Euler angles. These are variables. Returns the Euler angle representation of the rotation, and so on. Here's my constructor. Constructs new quaternion with given x, z, and y components. Okay, let's see if that works. So let's see if we can have any kind of thing. So notice I can do a public quaternion, float x, float y, and float z, and float w, right? Float w, which is something totally different. What's a w component? That's kind of weird, right? It says w is the component. Don't modify this directly unless you know quaternion inside out. Just saying, I'm just putting it out there for you. Set x, y, and z components of an existing quaternion, right? And then I can do different things. Change the angle, static functions. Returns the angle in degrees between two rotations A and B, right? Well, that's what these things are doing, and different operators that work with this. Look, rotation, and so on. For me, and for this particular game, my recommendation to you is accept it as is, please. Don't go crazy and trying to redo it. Just get rid of the barrel, right? How do I get rid of the barrel? What do I do? Well, we don't need this. Let's go back to quaternion identity. So I'm just going to copy this, what we had before, right? And put that in here, right? So understand quaternion identity. Okay, cool. That's just the original angle of that's incoming. So I instantiate this, and then what I want to destroy is the barrel. So destroy, right? That's the other way. I can instantiate and destroy, and I want to destroy the barrel when the explosion happens pretty much at the same time. And so how do I do that? It's going to be the hit.transform.gameObject. That's what I'm destroying, right? So whatever the game object is attached to my hit, it's gone, right? Let's see if that works out. Yes, we can do all kinds of stuff. We'll do the push another day. We're gonna waste time doing that today because I got to do score today. All right, so look around, right? No barrel, it looks pretty good, and I'm happy, right? Good enough. So I walk, I go here, no problem. I see this stuff popping up. It looks like it's happening, right? And when I hit the barrel, it goes boom. Okay, cool. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll get some points from shooting the barrel, right? And then we'll get some points for dying. We'll figure out a dying plane, what happens when you die, when you fall down, and stuff like this off the plane. And what about an enemy that comes at you? How do we figure that out? Because we can make some simple enemies as well. Okay, let's try that. We'll try that when we come back.